before we got started? What were you doing?
No, we're not doing that. It's
you were doing the 4, 3, 2,
yeah,
1.
the counting down. You know, you want to talk about stuff. But good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's a brand new week. Let's get into it, boys.
Let's do it.
Boom.
Welcome to the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Jeff, I was just gonna say, brother, you had a great little faded image around the end. I think you just turned on a light, but I like it better the other way, brother. Like it looks, So just turn that light off for a second. Look at that. Like it's got that fade around the sides. I think it's friggin' cool, man. I'd be rolling like that if I were you, brother. How was everybody's weekends?
Good, man. Good. It went too fast, just like every weekend, right? I mean, here you are, you're like, Friday, and then all of a sudden it's like, Monday. I mean, it's like
you do it. Yeah, it's awesome, man. Like I got a lot of stuff done. Went to the gym quite a bit. Did 2 days on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm loving it, just getting that energy, going back into the gym and eating good. I think eating good is one of the most important things that you can do. I think
I got to learn that.
Yeah. What about you, Dan? You look like you're ready. Looks like you got like 20 meters of snow.
I was just gonna say I can't wait to eat good. You know what, boys? This weekend, I was out of bed this weekend, which was awesome because last weekend, from Thursday last week until Sunday, I was literally sleeping in bed. So I got energy back. I feel good, but I realized I am so not ready for winter, and we're sitting here with snow on the ground. So I figured I'd do shout out to all my boys out there. I'm going to do a little snowmobile shout out this morning, but holy crap. I wake up Saturday morning and it was, we've had high 70s, 19, 20 degrees. We've had some beautiful weather for the past couple of weeks. And I'm sitting there going it's November. When is that switch going to hit? And I have all these grander plans, right? I'm going to put up my Christmas lights while it's sunny. I'm going to do all this stuff. And then all of a sudden woke up Saturday morning and it was like snow on the ground, frozen everywhere. And I'm like, I got to change my wife's winter tires, my daughter's winter tires. I've got to tarp my tractor. I've got to tarp the bar. I've got to tarp. And I'm like, holy doodle. I have got so much to do. And
holy
it's just
doodle?
Yeah, holy doodle. You don't like that? I'm trying to keep it clean. I'm trying to keep it clean. See, Damon's on this morning, and I don't know if Damon's there with his kids, and his kids are like, "Is that the kid that swears? The guy that swears on the radio?" Right. So I'm trying to keep it clean for the boys. But but got a lot done, and ready to rock and roll this week, man. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah, man, let's go. It's gonna be one thing I saw on Ed Milet, love Ed Milet, and he was just saying, this week, focus on competing against yourself. And that's I've been kind of fired up. I think Chris Jolly kind of posted on his Instagram story too, and I saw it. I was like, yeah, let's go. This is the one amazing week. So Dan, what do you got for us today, man?
What's the amazing week this week? What is it?
Sorry,
because it's a week out of the blue, or is there a special?
Yeah, let's go, man. It's nothing special is kind of planned or anything like that, but it's just we're a week. For me, I'm looking at it like a week. Next week is, we all know by like Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to be so slow. It's going to be moving snail's pace with Thanksgiving and Black Friday coming up. So get into work as you can.
So do you guys, speaking of Black Friday, anything you guys are specifically looking for Black Friday?
No.
I got everything, man. I'm at the point. Is there anything?
Yeah, air tickets.
Sorry?
Air tickets going someplace.
Ooh, that's a good one. Like vacations and stuff like that. Like a big...
maybe like an extended weekend or something like that. Wife and I were talking about that over the weekend. We're like, let's do something different, and who knows? I don't know if it'll come to fruition, but it's definitely an idea.
That's one thing that I've always admired about the U.S. is how cheap it is, or it was. I shouldn't say how cheap it is now. How cheap it was in airfare to go places real quick. Like in Canada, we've always had expensive airfare. I mean, you can go Toronto, Montreal pretty cheap, but if you wanted to get away, like if you wanted to get to South Carolina, it'd probably be pretty cheap, Jeff, or if you want, you know what I mean? And just to fly into US, it was always pretty cheap. And in Canada,
they got some pretty good deals out there for sure.
Oh yeah, huge. Huge.
Yeah.
What do we got? What do we got going on here? We agree with you, Ryan. Food is a huge part of being healthy, 100%. Nigel, welcome, my man. Just a thought. How many of your customers want to talk to you? Oh, this is a good one. Just a thought. How many of your customers want to talk to you, or do they feel they have to talk with you? Have a great week, gents. That's interesting. How many of your customers want to talk to you, or do they feel they have to talk with you?
Boy, if they have to talk to me, what went wrong?
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion my customers always want to talk to me because I hope I make them feel
what did
better
I miss
when we got on the phone. Yeah. Now, the thing, here's one of the big things is during this time, how many of us actually schedule calls with customers knowing they're going to be in slow times just to shoot the shit?
I talked to a few. Yeah, not all of them. It really all depends. It really does. It all depends. It could be just whatever it might be. I don't know what it is. It just really depends. I mean, when things are going really smoothly, there's no real reason to reach out to them. But if there's something that you're trying out, or you want to find out what they're doing, or I wouldn't say this right now. Hey, what are you doing in the first quarter of next year? I think you already know.
No. Just to call up and say, hey, what's going on?
Oh yeah, I mean,
family over for Thanksgiving.
Hey, I'm going to be in the area. I want to stop by. Bring you some, breakfast or something like that. Because it is the holidays. I do that every year anyway. Or I'll stop at the truck stop and I'll give out gift cards. I do that every single year as well. To give back to the drivers out there. So
that's pretty cool, Jeff.
Yeah. I try to do that every single year. I go to the local truck stop up here in Bud Lake, and I did it last year. It was great. I mean, just watching the faces of these truck drivers when they weren't expecting it, and you knock on their door and they're like, "Can I help you?" And it's just like, "Hey, man, I just was in the area. Want to say thank you. I own my own logistics company. I know you guys work really, really hard. Last year I spoke to this guy who was a flatbed driver, and he's like, I don't know how many more months I can last. My back is killing me with the tarps and all this other kind of stuff. I just listened to his story. I think he just wanted to talk, and he was very happy that someone was there to listen to him. And I gave him, 2 gift cards. I said, dude, just go in there and get a cup of coffee, a donut, a sandwich, or something like that. Thank you very much. They really do appreciate it, guys. You should try that.
Flatbeds with tarps and stuff. That's a tough gig, man. That's a tough gig. I had a buddy doing it. And he says, Dan, you don't understand. Like, he goes, you think it's just tarps, and that. He goes, it's friggin' tough. He goes, and then especially if you're doing the mountains, and then you got to chain the tires, and he's like, it's a whole other world.
No, the whole thing is that tarp weighs a ton, and they have to lay it out on the road and fold it up a certain way. It's like folding a flag, and then they have to secure it and lift it and put it underneath the flatbed. They weigh a lot, man. They weigh a lot. So I definitely respect those guys. All the drivers. I'm not just going to respect the flatbeds, but every guy or girl that's out there that's driving, man, I tell you, you got to give back every once in a while.
Ryan, speaking of that, you were giving back because I saw a post for you. Were you at a dog rescue this weekend again?
Yeah. So just to kind of come back to your question, what you were asking, Jeff, I have scheduled calls every week with my customers. It's honestly not about business. It's really to shoot the shit. And it takes maybe 10 minutes a call at most. See what you guys are doing. The one thing about being a niche person is that I work in the pet industry. So we're going to run in the same circles, whether it be an expo or whether it be a conference or something like that. So I think it's just, for me, it's about relationships. I can never really have a business conversation with somebody. It's just not in me to okay, we're going to go through this. We're going to go through this. There's time and place for that. But for me, it's just about, just like I'm talking with you guys very casually here. Yeah. Right. And just to kind of have that. So yeah, our team was in Mexico this weekend. We're doing a mobile spay and neuter clinic. Nice. We rescued 122 dogs and cats, all together. So I'm looking forward to when I can actually go down. I think I'll probably go down early next year, and I'll kind of do that. But we do have a holiday expo coming up this Saturday in International Center in Toronto. So for me, I use that not just for volunteering, but just to kind of go out and see what other customers are doing. Because I mentioned last week that one of the customers that we kind of see at the expo, they were on Dragon's Den, which is Shark's Tank. So I kind of want to know like what's kind of going on in the industry, kind of have your ear to the ground and kind of go from there. So I think I'm about having those phone calls, talking to people, meeting new people, and just being nice to people, right? So
sure.
Yep. Sounds good. Are you guys ready for this?
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Who's gonna pick? Which one are you gonna pick?
Let's go with my man Jeff.
Yeah,
My main man, Bodacious Cowboy. Ready?
go. Good. Come on, be different. Let's go. Oh, no.
Client retention. Now, client retention is always a good one. So down, as you guys know, when I do these things out, I write some things down. So my big client retention process was always 3 questions. And it was, I always ask these 3 questions. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on?
Yeah.
And then
I agree.
These 3 questions actually flow right into my reference letter strategy and all that. So a couple things I wrote down is obviously the 3 questions. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? A plan, a timeline, a follow-up, the good, the bad, the ugly, part of a question or monthly kind of deposition or debriefing on business, take notes and use for reference letters. So client retention, what's your guys' strategy for client retention? Besides delivering their freight on time. Let's take the obvious out of the equation here, gentlemen.
We can't say that.
I'll take a stab on this one. One thing that's important for me is, other than having these scheduled calls every week, is every month when I get my numbers, what I like to do is kind of make like a nice document saying like how many loads we did, what the revenue we did on, where we kind of had troubles with certain loads or anything like that, and kind of send that in a document form. That's kind of like pretty professional to say, hey, I thank you so much for your business. This is what we've done. This is the issues that we came across with any of the loads. This is what we've done to fix it. And hey, if we've done 10 loads this month, how do we kind of get up to, let's say, 15 to 20 for the next month and kind of go for growth? And I think they appreciate that, instead of not having just letting go by. Because how many times then do we think that we've done so much work, but then we look at the actual load count and we're like, oh my god, I only made 5 loads with these guys, but it's taking so forever. So coming back to like client retention, it's important for me to let them see the numbers, because they're dealing with X amount of carriers that they're dealing with there, and just understanding like, hey, what can I do to be better? Because I just want to be that solution provider for them. I want to be there for them all the time, in terms of what they need, so that they can look great to their bosses.
That's actually a really good idea, Ryan, because you give them the revenue, so how much they've spent with you, how many loads, so they can do quick math and see the rate per load on average or whatever, and then figure out, okay, if you did 5 loads and we do 1,000 pieces per load, I can give you an actual piece count as to what it costs to ship. And not to mention, if another incumbent is doing freight with them, and all of a sudden they start seeing a dollar amount that's a lot higher, then the question becomes, okay, well, what is it? Is it different loads, or are they charging more? And I like that summary idea. That's really good. Now, how long does it take you to do that every month?
Less than 5 minutes. So
yeah,
per customer. Yeah, we less than, because what it is that it's an autofill. I just basically plug in the loads, and then I plug in like the revenue, and that will be auto populated from there. And then I'll take my time to actually so what I do too, boys, is that anytime that, like, let's say there's a service failure or something really good happens, I like to tag that email and put in a separate folder on Outlook. So then I can actually just go and scroll, and for this purpose, because like so many times, like, hey, we're at the beginning of the month, we've had an issue, maybe even we'll pick up 5 minutes later, something like that. I want to flag that, I want to be able to have that conversation and not understand that from there. So yeah, each report probably takes me like, what is it, maybe an hour after I do all my customer reports and things like that. But that's an hour that I get back.
Well, you kind of get it back tenfold, right? Because if you take that hour and you get 5 more loads the next month, that's a pretty profitable hour.
I'm loving it.
Yeah. Lisa actually has a very good suggestion, Ryan. She says you can even ask them somehow to provide their PO value, and you can calculate it for them. I mean, that's adding to your. Ryan's like, that just added to my.
I ain't doing that. No, just
But easily, when I was moving a lot of quartz, it was always 109 slabs. That was the number, always. So anything we did, we just divided by 109 and we knew the piece count, right? So then all I would do is I would take that number 109, and when I was creating my reports, because what I did is I actually realized just through a casual conversation that most shipper systems are not set up to print the reports or produce the reports that they actually need for their bosses. And what was happening is my customer would spend like 4 hours a week going from one system to the other, to their inventory system, to this system, to find stuff. And I said, well, I could do a report for that in like 30 seconds through my system. He says, can you? So I'm like, I'm like, what about this? And he's like, and I emailed it to him. He's like, oh my God, this is perfect. And it actually brought it down into that piece count. So then what we did is we actually sat back and realized 65 units is the prime number for the lowest cost per piece.
Nice.
Which is interesting, because you would think truckload, right? Truckload, like just send it truckload as opposed to LTL. But there's always this variable in every customer's business where it's the cheapest per unit to ship. And we did that with Vanities out of California as well. And we realized that 12 skids was the cheapest unit to ship. So what they did is they held off all shipping until there was 12 skids.
Optimized it.
So, yeah. And it was just more of a, I mean, when I fly, I often just sit there with a calculator and just, okay, I just like type in numbers and look at things that I'm doing, and okay, if I do this, or if I do this, or if I improve it by 2%, what does it look like here? And it's just, right. It's amazing how numbers can change pretty quick on like 2-3%, right? Interesting. So yeah. Jeff, how do you?
And the other thing too, Dan, on that is, can they afford that? And when I say can they afford that, even though that their savings, how does that impact their supply chain by waiting that extra day and consolidating those shipments, to hit that 12 skid optimize shipment, so that's the takeaway, yeah, there's a savings here, but what does it do over on this side? So you got to look into that. Now, as far as what I do, it's funny because I'll say it, I work a little bit differently, right? So
we've never heard that. That's new, eh, Ryan? That's new.
Yeah, and he's made less than 5 calls. It's like you, and it's like Dan's Nicole Glenn story about picking the team. It's like I hear it like 5 times a week.
Yes. Well, it's a good story.
It's true. I don't do things in email. I go right to the VP and I have a cordial conversation with them, because they know what they're doing with you, and they know the revenue, and they know the number of shipments and everything. So I try to tell them something that they don't know. Like one thing, when guys go in there, they drop a trailer at one of my shippers and it's not ready. And then you got the detention, or they got tonneau charges and everything. Well, if you dig into the issues and you pretty much know that there's problems operationally, I don't put it in email. I just talk to them and I said, listen, I'll fly out there and I'll prove to you that I'll be in your place for less than 15 minutes and I will find something, because there's something happening and somebody's not saying something to someone, especially when they know what the trailer numbers are and they load the wrong trailer, going to the wrong destination. Well, that's all operations, right? Somebody's not telling them the right trailer number, as an example. So I tell them straight up, it's always a phone call. Not that I'm prospecting, but it's just a call with them. I have customers that I hardly ever talk to, because it just works like clockwork. There's never an issue with them. The only time that they reach out to me is when they're canceling a load. Can you do it? Boom. It's just like whatever, they may not have the manpower or anything like that. So it's those kind of things. Now, to your 3 questions that you mentioned earlier, Dan, I try to do that, I think, every quarter. If you're not getting contacted by them and they're telling you that there's an issue or something like that, you would have to assume that everything is working rather well, especially if they've been on board with you for 2 or 3 years, right? So I put that out there and I said, is there anything else that I can do, to bring even more value than what I'm offering right now? No, it's all right, or whatever, because just constant kind of work. So I would rather talk to somebody than put it in an email form. I just find it's a lazy way of doing it in email. I would rather talk, to the man in charge and have those cordial conversations rather than put it in an email. The only time that I will do that, RFP, why are we better than other people? Here's what we've done for you in the past. Here's the dates. I know all date specific and everything that we've done to save them money. And I put them in line item right in there, I'm not the cheapest, I'm not the most expensive, but I'm very competitive. So, and here's the justification of why I'm charging this. Boom. So
that's interesting. I'm just actually I just realized, sorry guys, I didn't mean to just space out here for a second, but I just realized that I never pulled up the lane of the day for today.
Oh,
and
let's do it.
Are you going to make the click, Ryan, or do you want me to?
No, I figure you got it.
I'll do the click.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Now I got to get it. Hold on. See, I'm behind, guys. You see, y'all, because normally I send this to Ryan, so Ryan's got it pulled up because he's got everything prepared. I'm still not quite in that prepared mindset, but this one's Reeford, Rockford, Illinois to Kansas City, Missouri, y'all, and it's a line haul rate of $3.29 per mile, an all-in rate including fuel surcharge of $4.03. That's huge. Contracted rate including that's a huge jump. Contracted rate including fuel is $4.31. So it's interesting, because you're gonna see that 403 and 431 get closer together. Remember what Dean says, where the spot market's kind of ahead of the contract market by a few months. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to be happening here. But here's a crazy thing. Year over year, the spot line haul rate per mile is 89 cents cheaper. So it was 89 cents more expensive year over year last year. The recent and there's a recent rate jump. So the recent rate jump on this lane is outbound capacity has tightened in Illinois. The current rate is 30 cents higher than the October average. So talk about like that kind of to me is a little bit of a roller coaster when you talk about rates. Like you're 89 cents cheaper than you were last year, but you're a 30-cent hike in a month. So that's your lane of the day, folks.
Yeah. Wow. That's a huge number.
That is actually a really big number. But you know what? You think of what's happening, you think of how the market's changing, how things are moving. And especially if you're talking, Illinois to Kansas, everybody wants their flatbeds in the Northwest right now for trees and stuff, right? Like you want the whole migration of freight is moving again. So interesting. So client retention for me, I never used to think about client retention, and I don't know with you guys when you actually started thinking about it. For probably the first 15 years of my career, never thought about it, ever. It was like customers would come and go, and I actually thought there was this like 3-year lifespan of a customer in logistics, and that was my mentality. And then so many people in my company had said, "Oh no, it's 3 to 5 years." Like, you get as much as you can out of them at 3 to 5 years and you keep going. And I often said to myself, like, is this a recipe for long-term health, long-term business health, long-term personal health? As a commission salesperson, is that a recipe to like raise children, buy a home, and everything? And I started really thinking about it. And I said, I don't think so, because if you're good for 5 years and then you're scrambling for 2 to pay bills and mortgages and all that, like that's not what I don't think anyone wants to live like that. And so I started thinking about it, and I started saying to myself, why is it that customers are only around for 2-3 years? And I started asking them, and the biggest thing that came back from all of my customers was, you know what it is, Dan, is when we first start working together, it's like all the attention is on me.
Yeah.
Right. And then as you work, it kind of subsides. And then, emails go from, 2 minutes being answered to 5 to 10. And then there's always that hungrier person coming in. So what I did is I stopped and thought to myself, where would my life be if I've never lost a client? Like, for all of you that have been in the industry a while, think about that for a second. If you've never lost a client, where would you be in business, financially? Like, it blows my mind. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to calculate it.
Right.
So I started saying every quarter at a minimum, I would sit down and here's the big thing. When I started calling CEOs and just having conversations with them, companies based on ROI, based on their revenue, change direction all year. And as what I believe to be the front line, which is logistics, if we don't understand that change at the highest level, everything we think we're doing that's adding value might not be adding value. And so, like Ryan said, we think we're doing all this stuff, and the customer is just like, no, it's not what I want. It's like, they come out and they have a Q2 meeting and it says, we got to cut cost. Right. And as a shipper, as a logistics guy, maybe the customer might not come to me because he might be embarrassed. He might not want to ask for a discount, right? Because we've probably had the conversations about, well, price dictates, or, those cheap customers, and I know what you mean when people try and, squeeze me and all that, right? So you never know what's actually going on inside the mind of your customer, and assuming just makes an arse out of you and me. And so what I did is I started saying, okay, well, every quarter at a minimum, and I would always do it 2 to 3 weeks before the quarter would end, because I'd want to know kind of where they're coming from. And then if they had their meetings at the end of the quarter, at least my meeting was so fresh. They're like, okay, I can have the conversation with them. And it was always, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? And then my fourth question was always, okay, has anything changed? When we first started this quarter, when we first started this year, when we first started whatever, this was the goal. Is it still the goal? And I can't tell you how many times shippers have said to me, actually, no. A month ago, the CEO or the CFO or the COO said we need to do this. And I'd always be like, a month ago, because it's just business happens and things flow, and it's just people stop talking, unfortunately. When that started happening, then I was able to pivot and move what we did as their incumbent, as their logistics provider, as the extension of their business to their customers. We were able to pivot what we did to meet that goal. You see what I'm saying? And it's actually, if all of you out there were to call your customers today and just ask those questions, it would give you insight into how you help them that you've never seen before. And actually get some things and ask them, say, listen, if you don't deal with that specific decision maker, say, ask your team, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? And you might actually find that the improve portion, where it's not necessarily it pisses me off so bad I got to yell at you for it, but it's like a hot air balloon, and you put one pin in it and nothing happens, and you put another pin and you put another pin and and before you know it, the balloon is sinking and it's shrinking and it's like breaking down, but it's just one little piece. But none of the one pieces are enough for somebody to raise an eyebrow or to get pissed off. But when they all add up, it adds up to, I'd rather use this supplier over this one. And it's been one of my lifesavers to keep customers for 15 years and still not only keep them for 15 years, but have them so happy as if we just started doing business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
100%. It's like, it's like when you get into a new relationship, you got that honeymoon phase, and then you start to see the quirks after a couple months and things like that. And, Dan, when you're talking, it made me realize, like, other people don't know what, like, you don't realize like the worth that you have or the things that you do unless somebody kind of points it out to you, right? Like if it's and that's what I've kind of learned with customers too. I like kind of like to learn about, hey, what do you guys like? Do you guys like when we respond within 5 minutes, or do you like when we bring our team involved? Because I think what's helped me with client retention, I'm just one person, right? I can't handle 30 if 30 customers are coming. I'm just one person, right? So I believe like it's really important to understand when you need that help and bring your team and let them be involved, because I know all three of us can agree right now, we're nothing without our team. We're able to do this podcast right now because, you know, our team is taking care of stuff in the back end, right? And, you know, it's important to kind of bring that along. So I think having the right team members, having that right mindset of client retention, because when you think of like an operations specialist or a customer service specialist, their goal, they get paid salary. They don't really care about to be honest, they don't care about our customers. They have other salesmen they can work on and things like that. So to bring them on into that dream and understand, okay, this is what this customer does. This is what this customer likes. What are your thoughts? And how can we be successful with them, right? Because that's going to be the difference when two different customers email at 9:30, who are they going to respond to first? Right. And where do they get that sense of urgency? So I think client retention is just not yourself as well. It definitely is with your team.
And you know something, there's two things that come to mind on that, right? About client retention. It's cheaper to keep a client on board than to find a replacement. That's a fact. Okay. Secondly, you talking about static and dynamic environments. Okay. Just as much as the brokerage side, the business changes every single day. The same damn thing happens internal logistics operations. They can't settle for the same thing every single day. They have a lot of pressures that are on them from their report twos that want change. They want things to be better. So if you can approach it that way and understand that they have just as many problems as we do as service providers on the outside, things start clicking. You start to understand those dynamics and what's happening within that environment and how you have to respond accordingly to meet their needs, because it does change every single weekend. What happens today is not going to be the same a month from now or a year from now, or because that traffic manager, that logistics manager will not be working there. I can tell you as a fact. So you have to be on top of your game. You have to ask those questions and be able to adjust when they adjust.
I'll share a story with you guys. Really, really good friend of mine is very high up at Sherwin-Williams. And we have logistics conversations all the time. Last year in 2020, what are we, 2022 now? So 2021, he moved 77 times suppliers for ink for the paint. 77 different suppliers he had to move from. So, and think about this for a second. So Sherwin-Williams is what, a $4 billion company. They're global. Their paint is global. So he said, Dan, what the biggest thing is when our logistics team, meaning us as their logistics team, were not up to speed on what was happening. He goes, it was a nightmare. And I said, well, did you keep them up to speed? He said, the thing was, we were so busy sourcing that goes to the wayside. He goes, it was the ones that weekly, it's okay, what's happening this week? What are we looking at? Because the supply of the dye for paint was so low. You know, when I got another customer now who does bricks, sand for bricks. He goes, we can't find it anywhere. And so it's like 1 week they're here, 1 week they're here, 1 week they're here, 1 week they're flying ink in. And as Sherwin-Williams logistics suppliers, they were like drowning because they'd call them up 1 week and go, where are all the business going? They go, well, we're not buying from there, we're buying from there. Well, why didn't you tell me? Well, I'm too busy trying to find the product. And it's like, and as much as we would think, right? Oh, well, if the product's here, I better call my suppliers to see if they can pick it up. It's like, it's this crisis mode. Like, think about it, 77 times. That's like what, 7 times a month almost that you're changing suppliers. That's like almost twice a week where you're thinking you're in this line and really you got to be over here. And so that piece of the puzzle, I think is lost on a lot of us. As a freight broker, as a carrier, as whatever. It's like we don't dig that deep into their business. and understand that if we move a finished product, how does this get to in my hand?
Boom.
There's a whole other piece.
Agreed.
Like there's and he said that was the big thing. He goes, Dan, like we have so many logistics suppliers that think we are like they're almost pissed off because it's like, well, I lost an opportunity. He goes, but things are happening so quick that we just that mentality isn't there. And he goes, and I wish it was, because there probably should be a give and take. And I believe that, there should be. But as a logistics guy, it's like, holy crap, how do I keep my customer's head above water? Right. And if you were just moving their automotive paint, you would never know that automotive division 22 times that last year. So, twice a month, they were changing ink suppliers and then retesting. And carriers were saying, well, why is there like a 2-week lull? And then all of a sudden, like 3 weeks worth of freight gets pushed out. Because it's like, it's all right. But how many of us dive that deep into our customer supply chain? Like, would you guys both be able to say you understand every single customer's full supply chain?
No.
Because I know I didn't for all of my customers. I didn't at all.
Well, here's the question, right? And we spoke about this many times. I think what it really comes down to, Dan, is the niche that you work in. So if your niche is automotive and you've dealt with a lot of chemical companies, right, in that area, you might be able to help them on the procurement side to add even more value if you have those connections within the industry, right? So it really comes down to niche. Are you an SME in paint supply for automotive? Well, if you are, then there's a high probability you might be able to solve their problems because you have a plethora of contacts that they may not know of. Most likely they do, but I'm just saying that. But that's where the value comes in. It's like when you spread your experience across many different boards and you're not focusing in on those niche, that's where you kind of lose compared to other competitors who may have that upper hand, that know that industry like the back of their hand. So it's just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it starts in the qualifying. I think this starts in the qualifying process as well. Like finding out like where everything gets made. Like a story that it reminds me of, those like little plastic clips that you put on bread, and it says like the date and things like that. There was a customer that we're working with and they make those and there was a shortage of it. Right. So, and the qualifying, we found out, okay, where does this stuff go? What does it become at the end of the day? Because I learned from somewhere, someone picked up like a cordless drill and they're like, how many parts or how many things do you think became this drill? Right. And it's just so many moving parts, the boxes, the actual screws and all that stuff. So in qualifying, it's important to find out, hey, if you're in, let's say the paint for automobile, you want to find out, where does everything come from? Where does the paint, where does the actual can come from? Where does the nozzle come from? Because when situations like this happen, you don't want to be like, okay, hey, we're crushing it for 2 weeks and we haven't seen a load. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I've been talking with everybody in the industry. Freight for us and I'm kind of seeing is like down 30% across the board. It's just, that's the way that I'm seeing it. I'm not looking at statistics and stuff like that. I'm just going based on my business and other people's businesses that I've talked about. So it's like, why is that? Right. So you dig in deeper, you figure out, okay, there's a shortage here. Plastic papers or something like that. So you understand that, but that really comes in your qualifying, because then you kind of spider web it out, right? Let's say you're doing something like lobsters or something like that, and then they're out of boxes. You're like, okay, where the hell do they get their boxes from? So that's I think.
Well, now you're talking about getting food certified, or in the automotive paint, you're hazmat certified, right? So you got that upper hand. You've dealt with paint suppliers. That's where you get a little deeper in there, because the UN numbers, all of that, how to package that, how to put it into trucks, LTL shipments, full truckloads, whatever. That's those conversations that you can have on that, because it, like I said, the back of your hand.
But it's even superficial. It could also be like Ryan was saying on that higher level or lower level, I guess. Like one of my students, John, he had a customer down south, and all of a sudden they stopped shipping. And he says, Dan, I decided just to give him a call and kind of shoot the shit. And midway through the call, he's like, listen, I noticed, did we do anything wrong? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? And they said, no, you're doing everything right. They said, we can't find pallets. Like, he goes, I got stuff stacking in my warehouse. I can't find pallets. He goes, really? So he spent the day searching and found a company like 37 miles away that had 2 truckloads of pallets. He called his customer, and made the connection. They bought the pallets. All of a sudden, they started shipping freight again. And the customer was like, "Oh man, thank you. We searched everywhere." And he was just like, "I realize now, Dan, what you mean by being like adding value and having the conversations to understand." He goes, "I could have just assumed they found a cheaper price and never called. I could have just assumed this." He goes, "But I had the conversation and I realized that, and it wasn't like he wasn't making money on the pallets. He just made the connection. And because of that, he almost doubled his business with the customer." And it's just because, like, wow, everyone else would have been like, "Okay, well, call me when you get pallets, or I'm here when you need me." Where he was like, "Okay, well, how do I assist this customer in sustaining their revenue? Let's go find pallets."
Yeah.
Right. So, and then, I'm wondering even if he started doing business with the pallet company, because, now you're kind of adding that value on that side as well.
And just like what Jeff kind of says, you just kind of spider web it. You just work your
Yeah.
customers inside out, and that's the best way for client retention. You learn a lot too. And I think, like, what you're saying with John with the pallets, like, hey, how many of us thought that there would be a pallet shortage or something like that? You just assume pallets are everywhere. Like, I see pallets on the side of the road, right? And it's like, okay, well, maybe let me look into this. And then it's like that idea goes off in his head, like, what other customers are having pallet shortages, and how can I connect, right? So, pretty cool.
Yeah, we're actually working on a product that deals with pallets that nobody else has out here, that will actually decrease space and increase weight on truckloads, palletized. And that's going to be a huge value, More to come on that.
I hope you're not putting it on top of the trucks, so the pallets are visible and all the freight's on top of the truck. Make sure you trade
one short bridge, and that's all done. It's fine.
That's it. And you get them all for free.
Yeah, that's it. Just don't want to be the poor driver, poor four-wheeler behind the truck. That's all. That's like you've seen that in the wintertime. You see so many videos on it in the wintertime where the top of the truck's got like 1.5 feet of snow. And I watch it all the time going down the highway. And now it's illegal in Ontario and Quebec now. But it's
dangerous.
Yeah, and it's like you watch it and you can just see it, and it's like, oh boy, that's about to go. Yeah, it's scary, man. It's scary. All right, Ryan, what are we wrapping it up today? What are we doing here?
Yeah, let's wrap it up, man. Well, it's awesome, right? We're getting that client retention. So I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. Catch us back on the replay at 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern time. YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Definitely tomorrow and this week, we've got some pretty cool things lined up for you guys. So tune in, and let's see you guys tomorrow.
Speaking of Twitter, guys, hold on. Just speaking of Twitter, is there like employees left at Twitter now, or did Elon just fire everybody again?
You know what? I think Twitter's gonna. I would be surprised if they don't do bankruptcy in the next 60 days. I think.
Really?
I think so. I think it's you know what? I think, okay, so the way that I kind of see it, it's going a little bit off topic. When Elon made that tweet about buying Twitter, he was already a shareholder in terms of part of their board. So I felt like he had to kind of go through with it, or else he would have kind of got some backlash. So I think it's going to be over. I think their bankruptcy, Jack Dorsey, who was the previous owner, he's already started up his own kind of Twitter light, I guess, his own startup. So yeah, I'd be surprised. I'd be honestly surprised if they don't claim bankruptcy in 60 days. So mark my words.
That's a $4 billion haha, or $44 billion haha, whatever he paid for.
That's a huge shit moment.
Yeah. You know what he should do is it should just divide that up amongst us.
Everybody. Yeah.
Us, not just the Twitter employees.
Yeah,
us. If you've made a tweet in the past 20 years, you deserve some compensation.
Yes.
All right, boys.
And we tweet every day, so come on.
No.
Centurion Trucking, our motto is people before profit. Today's market requires more transparency, consistency, and focus on what our clients need to win. Centurion Trucking and American Logistics are poised to help their clients achieve and surpass their targets. If you're looking for a team that honors your needs, dreams, and aspirations, then get a hold of Daman at American Logistics or Centurion Trucking and start designing